with an open mind, you may be surprised. Yeah!
Why is it that in these kind of...
Can everybody hear him? We're all going to have to kind of speak up because we don't have microphones.
Why is it that in these kinds of debates, people try to avoid infinite regress? Like, why is that like an automatic you lose if something goes into an infinite regress? Like the beginning of the universe, why couldn't it just regress infinitely?
I could maybe take a quick stab at that one. If we're talking about versions of arguments for the existence of God where, you know, there had to be a beginning to the natural universe, right? Now you know you're being set up by the theologian, right? Because then the trap would be, well, what is the cause of that natural thing? It must be something non-natural, right? So you're being forced into a dilemma. Why can't it just be more nature? Is, of course, the naturalist's reply. Now be careful, we can't prove, and Matt was very good at saying, we don't yet know, or even have a glimmering of what the right answer might be like, of where the Big Bang came from. It's the naturalist hypothesis that science should try to, you know, give a naturalistic explanation. Indeed, science has been doing a marvelous job. So for all we know, it's probably more nature, right? The supernaturalist, aware of that, wants to say, no, it can't be just more nature. You're claiming that it must be infinitely more nature, either infinite in scope or infinite in time. And then versions of the argument, for example, the Kalam cosmological argument, which has been making some fuss lately with William Lane Craig, says, and this is a take on one of the classic arguments from Aquinas, it's impossible for the human mind to conceive of an infinite series of events that would have had to happen on the naturalistic hypothesis before the Big Bang. Since it's impossible to conceive of this infinite, there must be some definite beginning. That's the start of nature, and that's why you need a God behind it. It can't just be more nature. Now notice this premise. It's impossible to conceive of an infinite series leading up to a specific time. And they make a big fuss out of this. Well, actually, that's the definition of an infinity. If you could conceive of it, it wouldn't be an infinite quantity, right? Mathematicians will tell you whether you can conceive of it is actually irrelevant to whether it might actually be the case. In other words, nature might outrun our capacity to imagine it. Now, at this point, the theologian goes berserk and says, no, God's easier to imagine, but I'll tell you, that God suddenly becomes eternal, timeless, and all this other even more hyper-imaginary thing. So the safer thing is to just be, you know, a skeptical naturalist and be content with just trying to explore more nature. Don't let the theologian scare you with trying to conceive infinities. You're not supposed to try. That's the mathematical point.
To add on to that a little bit, probably the dominant hypothesis of how our universe came into existence naturally is the multi-universe or multiverse, which postulates that there are an infinite number of universes that are constantly reproducing. For example, a black hole forms, a wormhole forms that can spawn a new universe. This could be happening all around us. Even little miniature black holes might be able to do this. And what theists will say is, what's the likelihood of there being other universes? You're bringing in all this other complexity. The thing is, the point to that is that what's the chance this is the only universe in all of existence? Statistically, that's as close to zero as you can get. Almost certainly there is more than one universe. And if you have more than one, there's no particular number you're going to get. You're going to get infinity. So, and also, there are all sorts of theories that predict multiple universes. Relativity does, gravitational theory, string theory, quantum theory. There's just a whole bunch of scientific lines that indicate that there are multiple universes. So you just don't need a God. God's get into the way. There's an extra intervention that don't make sense.
So why do we avoid it? It's because it's messy. There's a number of different ways represented just on this panel alone. You were talking about mathematicians. I think mathematicians instantly point out that you're wrong to even consider infinity a quantity. To assume that it's a quantity already violates what it is. So yeah, it's messy and it's unnecessary, and we already know that the arguments that are used, that try to make use of that, are fallacious on their face. That it's like saying, you can't conceive of an infinity, but I can. It's kind of what they end up trying to do. And so the only winning move is not to play.
May I ask one more?
Well, actually, it occurs to me that we might try to proceed around the room and give every table a chance. The next table is back here. Yeah, go ahead.
The father kind of implied during the debate, Matt, that you're somehow different or more moral than others that he termed part of the new atheist movement.
He's more moral than me.
I tend to disagree with that, but I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that, how you think you fit in with and identify with the other atheists.
I think he had a limited interaction with me, and I was who I am. And who I am is, there are days on the show where I'm a prick, and I acknowledge it. There are times when I get polemical and will even call people names. I think it's usually deserved, and I think it's when I've reached my limit. I think he saw, by and large, in me, somebody who, a fellow quote-unquote truth seeker, someone who I don't think he could argue with about what I was actually saying. A lot of what he said to me seemed as if, let me throw some poetry on this, and a bald assertion about the beauty of God and the beauty of beauty, and we're done. And so it wasn't until he did something that I considered just extremely poor form that he even got to see a hint of another side of me. So I don't think I'm different or better or anything. I think he wasn't in a position to assess who I was. I think he was making a fairly quick judgment about who I am, and I think he got it partly right.
I recently became a non-believer, well, like over the past few years, and Eastern Orthodoxy was kind of the last branch that I hit falling out of the
You
Jesus.
sacrificed your baby yet?
Oh, not yet.
In the afternoons.
Right, I need to work on that. And so I was expecting this to be an interesting debate because there's some ways in which Orthodoxy is anti-rationalism. The intellectual framework for it is non-Western, and I think that a lot of how that's framed is going to become more popular for like kind of postmodern Christianity in the US. What were some ways in which you felt like you were surprised by things that he said, and ways in which you think that it was challenging rhetorically to respond to how he was talking about things?
I was, apart from the closing, I was most frustrated probably when I asked questions and didn't get an answer early on. And later I came to understand why. And he explained it in this, and he not being a literalist is free to say that for example, the writings about slavery represent bad Jewish law and don't actually represent the word of God. And I'm coming from a Protestant background and would say, boy, you're a heretic for just saying that, because this is the inspired word of God, every word of it, it's right there in the New Testament. This is a difference in what we view about religion. So that frustration of not getting an answer was kind of eased as soon as I realized why it didn't happen. I don't know, I think there were times, it didn't surprise me. The bombshell at the end was the only thing that actually surprised me. The kind of atheism and secularism lead to gulags, doomsday prediction.
Or porn, I couldn't tell which one. A lot of blood, either way. Yeah. I don't know what kind of porn you're going to like.
Well, on that subject,
Religion never leads to blood.
Yeah, right.
what he did there is he claims to be a Christian man of principle, while by accusing atheists of looking at porn all the time, that was sleazy.
Yeah.
And who knows what he does? And there's a long history. You know, I sometimes come across the country, and at interstate interchanges, you find these porn shops. In the heartland of America, the Christian part of the country. The popes kept mistresses and so on and so forth. It's a common problem that I have with Christians, is they claim to be people of principle, and they will get into the sleaze real quick. There was a debate between Hitchens, who's such a brave man. It was just, you know, he's got cancer. He did this debate with David Berlinski. Berlinski comes across as this very arched, principled man, a professor, and he was getting some sleazy comments about how atheists write these books to make money. That's how low these people can get. Wow.
Maybe I should write a book.
Well, the counter argument is, if you really want to make money off of religion, you do what
You start a religion.
you do, or you do like Rick Warren or whatever, or Ann Coulter or Bill O'Reilly. Do a pro-religious book, then you make the big bucks.
Yeah, the comment about the porn thing, you know, I don't want to make him out to be any more nefarious than I think he was. But you're right, and there is a kind of sleaziness to it, because on the one hand, he was willing to put me in a category as different from, you know, perhaps I just haven't viewed enough porn, although I would beg to differ. But this idea that secularism leads to this, and that it's something wrong. First of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think we haven't established, as a matter of course in the debate, that there's anything wrong with somebody watching porn, a consenting adult watching another consenting adult have sex. Hey, if you're going to say it's wrong, you need to demonstrate why it's wrong. So there's this insinuation that it's wrong, and a linking it to a lack of moral sense with no justification behind this all, just bald assertion.
I think there's scientific evidence that watching porn, people's heart rate, their stress, it has an ill effect on their body, whereas faith is life assisting.
There are also studies that show that since the availability of porn has gone up, the rape rate has decreased.
But in any case, here's the thing.
That doesn't mean people aren't burning internally.
Hang on. In any case, here's the thing. There's an insinuation that comes not just from him, but from others, that there are these things that they deem evil in the world, and that they are somehow tied to atheism. Those of us who represent perhaps somewhere between 1% and 14% of the population are somehow responsible for the 80 to 90% of, you know, the porn. Good job, guys.